My name is Gretchen Ellis. I am 34 years old, a project manager in tech here in Boston. Single, no kids, and the one who keeps the bills paid in our family home. It was New Year's Eve, December 31st. I had just stepped off the train from New York after a long, exhausting business trip. My body ached from hours of sitting. My mind was already picturing the moment I would walk through the door, hug everyone, hear the fireworks outside, and finally feel like I belonged somewhere for one night. That small hope was what kept me moving through the cold station platform and into the taxi. But when I pulled into the driveway of our suburban house in Boston, everything felt wrong. The house was completely dark. No Christmas lights, no glow from the windows, no sound of music or laughter leaking out. It looked abandoned. I paid the driver, grabbed my suitcase, and walked up the path with a knot forming in my stomach. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The air was stale. My suitcase wheels echoed loudly on the hardwood floor. I called out, "Dad, Mom, Ashley." No answer. I dragged the suitcase toward the kitchen, hoping to find at least one sign of life. That was when I saw the piece of paper on the table held down by a coffee mug. I recognized Dad's handwriting immediately, with Mom's neat signature and Ashley's quick scrawl underneath. The note was short and cold. "We flew to Vegas for countdown. Take care of Grandpa Harold. He's just lying there anyway." My heart slammed against my ribs. I dropped the suitcase and ran upstairs to Grandpa's room, terrified of what I would find. If you've ever come home on a holiday night expecting warmth and family, only to find an empty house and a note that changes everything, drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from right now, what time it is where you are, and whether you've ever felt that same sinking feeling. I read everyone. Stay with me, because what happened next still keeps me awake at night. The room was dark and stuffy, the air thick with the smell of damp sheets and leftover food that had gone bad. Grandpa Harold lay motionless on the narrow bed, his skin pale and cracked lips dry and split chest rising in shallow, uneven breaths. It looked like he hadn't had water or food in at least 2 days. My heart pounded as I rushed to his side, touching his wrist. Cold, too cold. Panic surged through me. They had left him like this since the afternoon of the 30th, while they flew off to Vegas for their party. I ran downstairs to the kitchen, filled a glass with warm water from the tap, grabbed a clean spoon from the drawer, and hurried back up the stairs. Gently, I lifted his head with one arm and let tiny drops trickle between his lips. At first, nothing happened. Then a weak swallow barely there. I kept going slowly, terrified of choking him. I wet a washcloth under the bathroom faucet and wiped his face, his neck, the grime from days without care. From the closet, I pulled a clean flannel shirt, the soft one I had bought him last month, and changed him as carefully as I could, supporting his weight against my shoulder. All the while, tears streamed down my face. How could Dad do this? How could Mom and Ashley just walk away? They knew he depended on us. I had been the one driving to the pharmacy after late shifts, paying for his blood pressure pills and the special cushion for his back, while they made excuses or complained about the cost. As I adjusted the pillow behind his head, his fingers suddenly tightened around my wrist, not strong but desperate, like someone clinging to the last thread of life. His eyes cracked open, hazy but focused on me. In a ragged whisper, barely audible over the distant boom of fireworks outside, he said, "Don't. Call ambulance. They want me dead." I froze, my breath catching. Who wants that?" I leaned closer, voice trembling. He managed a faint shake of his head, a gesture for silence. His breathing steadied slightly as I continued giving him sips of water. I stayed by his side for what felt like hours, feeding him more liquid little by little, wiping sweat from his forehead, talking softly to keep him conscious. "It's okay, Grandpa. I'm here. Just swallow slowly." Slowly, color returned to his cheeks. His eyes cleared a bit. He was still weak, his hands shaking but alert enough to speak in short, labored sentences. "I made mistakes," he rasped, I controlled your dad too much, kept the money tight, made him feel small. Now they turn on me. The words hit me like a slap. I had always known Grandpa was strict with money, that Dad resented him for it, but hearing it from his own mouth made it real. He pointed weakly toward the nightstand drawer. Lock the door. Close curtains. No one comes. Bah! I stood up, crossed the room, turned the lock with a soft click, and pulled the heavy drapes shut, blocking out the faint glow of neighborhood fireworks. The room grew even darker, lit only by the small lamp on the dresser. Back at his side, he nodded toward the drawer again. I opened it. Inside was an old smartphone screen, cracked, but still glowing when I pressed the power button. I set up camera app long time ago, he whispered. Look. I opened the app, hands shaking. It showed live feeds from small hidden cameras around the house, the living room, kitchen, hallway, even the front porch. He had been watching everything. My stomach twisted. Was he really as helpless as he seemed, or had this all been some kind of test? The thought made me uneasy, a cold doubt creeping in. I glanced at him, searching his face for answers, but he only closed his eyes again, exhausted from the effort of speaking. I sat back on the edge of the bed, the phone in my lap, staring at the screen. The feeds were quiet now, the house empty except for us. Fireworks boomed again outside, marking midnight, the start of a new year. But inside this room, time felt frozen. Whatever came next, I knew I couldn't walk away. Not yet. Not until I understood what he meant by, "they want me dead," and why he had been watching us all along. I stared at the cracked screen of Grandpa's old phone, the app open to a grid of live feeds. The house looked eerily empty downstairs. No movement in the living room, no lights in the kitchen. The front door closed tight. Their suitcases were gone from the hallway, the ones I had seen stacked by the door before my trip. They really had left everything behind except him. Grandpa tapped the screen weakly with one finger. Screenshots. From their group chat. I got access through Ashley's old phone. She never changed the password. He swiped and a series of images loaded. The first was a photo Dad had sent 2 days ago, a scan of the house deed, and a few pages of trust documents circled in red ink. The caption read, "Waiting until after New Year's to list with the broker. Market's hot right now." Mom's reply came right after. "Once it's sold, we split the cash. Ashley can get that condo she wants in the city." Ashley had added a string of heart emojis and a voice note I could play. Her voice was casual, almost excited. "Grandpa probably won't make it past next week anyway. Gretchen will have to move out. The house is ours then. No more sharing with her." The words landed like punches, not outright threats, nothing that said kill him or poison him, but the intent was crystal clear. They were waiting for him to die naturally, or not so naturally, so they could cash in. And me, I was just an obstacle, someone who would be pushed aside once the money came through. My own family saw me as expendable. I felt sick. The room spun for a second. I looked at Grandpa, searching his face for some sign this was a misunderstanding. His eyes were tired but steady. "I pushed your dad too hard when he was young," he said in that same raspy whisper. "Kept the trust tight, made him beg for every dollar. Told him he had to earn it. He hated me for it. Now they're turning it back on me. Payback." His words hung in the air. I thought about all the times Dad had complained about Grandpa being controlling, about Mom sighing that family money should be for the kids, about Ashley rolling her eyes whenever I mentioned Grandpa's medications. It had always felt like background noise. Now it clicked into place. Grandpa watched me closely. "You wondering if I'm telling the truth, or if this is some game?" I swallowed hard. "I don't know what to think." He nodded slowly, as if he had expected that. "Fair. I haven't been a good man. I held the purse strings like a weapon. Thought it would make them stronger. It only made them resent me. Now they want what's left." He paused, breathing shallow. The trust is real. About 7-8 million in properties and accounts. Irrevocable set up 15 years ago so no one could touch it without my say. But it's not finished. I never named a successor trustee. That's where you come in. My pulse quickened. Me. If you walk away now, call the ambulance, tell your parents. The trust reverts to charity. No one gets a dime. Not them. Not you. If you stay, help me expose what they're doing. You become the successor. You decide what happens next. The weight of it crushed me. Stay and play along with whatever plan he had or call for help and watch everything. The house, the money, any chance of reconciliation, vanish into a charity fund. I thought about the years I had spent covering bills, buying his meds, listening to their complaints, while they spent freely on vacations and clothes. I thought about Ashley's voice note so light and careless. Grandpa probably won't make it past next week anyway. I looked down at him. He was waiting, eyes fixed on mine. What do you want me to do? I asked quietly. Nothing yet, he said. Just don't call anyone. Watch with me. See how far they'll go. Then decide who you are. I set the phone on the nightstand screen, still glowing with those damning messages. The fireworks outside had died down, leaving only silence and the faint tick of the clock in the hallway. I didn't know if I was angry, scared, or something worse. Curious. But I knew one thing: I wasn't leaving this room until I understood exactly what kind of family I had come home to. The phone screen dimmed as the live feeds went quiet, leaving only the faint glow from the lamp to light Grandpa's face. He shifted slightly against the pillows, wincing from the effort, then fixed his eyes on me with a look that mixed regret and determination. The trust is called Bennett Family Irrevocable Trust. He began, voice low but steady. I set it up 15 years ago, right after your dad started showing signs he wouldn't handle money well. 3 properties in Boston, this house, a duplex in Dorchester, and a small commercial building downtown. Plus liquid accounts that add up to around $7 or $8 million total. Irrevocable means once it's funded, I can't take it back or change beneficiaries on a whim. The whole point was protection. From bad decisions, from creditors, from family squabbles. I listened without interrupting, the weight of the numbers sinking in. 7 or 8 million. Not the kind of fortune that makes headlines, but enough to change lives in a quiet way. Enough to make people wait for someone to die. I'm the trustee right now, he continued. I control distributions, investments, all of it. But I never named a successor trustee. That was deliberate. I wanted to see who would step up when the time came, who would act with responsibility instead of greed. Your dad. He never did. He borrowed against the properties early on, got in over his head, and blamed me when I said no more. I tightened the reins. Thought I was teaching him a lesson. All I did was breed resentment. His breath caught and he paused to swallow. I handed him the water glass again. He took a slow sip before going on. Your mom enabled it. She liked the lifestyle. Vacations, new furniture, Ashley's dance classes. They all got comfortable living off what the trust allowed. But when I started getting sick, really sick, the mask slipped. They stopped visiting, stopped asking how I felt. They started talking about what would happen when I was gone. That's when I knew. I felt a twist in my chest. And Ashley. She's young, 28. Thinks the world owes her. She grew up hearing your dad complain about me. She never saw the man who built something from nothing, just the old guy who wouldn't open his wallet. So she decided the wallet should open when I'm not around to stop it. He looked away for a moment toward the closed curtains. I regret a lot. I manipulated your dad when he was younger, held the purse strings like a leash, made him feel small so he'd try harder. It backfired. Now they want revenge, and you're caught in the middle. The silence stretched. I could hear my own heartbeat in the quiet room. Outside, the occasional fireworks still popped, but the big show was over. Midnight had passed. A new year had started without fanfare. "So what happens now?" I asked. "The trust has a clause," he said. "If I die without naming a successor trustee, or if the named successor refuses, or is deemed unfit, everything reverts to a charitable foundation. Elder care programs mostly. No one in the family gets a cent. But if you agree to be successor, you get the role. You decide distributions. You decide if they keep the house, the allowances, any of it." I stared at him. "You're putting that on me." "I'm giving you a choice," he replied. "Call the ambulance now. Get me to the hospital. Your parents come back, everything goes back to normal. Until the next time they leave me alone. Or stay. Help me draw them out. Let them show who they really are. Use the law to make it official. No violence. No tricks. Just truth." My mind raced. Calling 911 would save him immediately. Doctor's IV fluid safety. But it would also end whatever this was. The trust would stay in limbo, and my family would keep pretending nothing happened. They might even blame me for overreacting. Staying meant playing along with Grandpa's plan, watching, waiting, gathering proof. It meant confronting the people I grew up with. It meant risking everything if they found out. I thought about Ashley's voice note, the casual cruelty in it. Mom's quick reply about splitting cash. Dad sending the deed photo like it was already decided. They had written me out of their future without a second thought. Grandpa watched me struggle. "You don't have to decide tonight. Just don't leave. Stay with me through the night. Think about what family really means to you." I nodded slowly. I couldn't walk out. Not yet. I helped him lie back more comfortably, adjusted the blanket, then sat in the chair beside the bed. The phone stayed in my lap, screen off now. I didn't look at it again. Instead, I watched him breathe, watched the rise and fall of his chest, and wondered what kind of daughter, what kind of granddaughter, I would be when morning came. The clock on the wall ticked past 1. The house was still. For the first time in years, I felt completely alone, even with him right there. Sunlight filtered through the thin gap in the curtains, turning the room a pale gray. Grandpa had dozed off sometime after our long talk, his breathing steadier now, but still shallow. I stayed in the chair, knees pulled up, staring at the phone until the battery warning flashed. Around 7 in the morning, a soft knock came at the front door downstairs. I slipped out quietly, closing Grandpa's door behind me, and went to answer it. Through the peephole, I saw a man in a dark overcoat, briefcase in hand, standing on the porch. I opened the door a crack. "Victor Lang," he said, voice calm and professional. "Mr. Bennett called me an hour ago. Emergency consultation." I let him in. He was tall, mid-50s, gray at the temples, carrying himself like someone used to walking into tense rooms. No small talk. He followed me upstairs without asking questions, set his briefcase on the dresser, and nodded toward Grandpa, who was awake again and watching us. "Chair," Grandpa said weakly. "Sit." Victor pulled the chair closer to the bed. He opened the briefcase, removed a thin folder, and placed it on the blanket. "I have the emergency injunction application ready," he began. "Filed electronically at 5:30 this morning. Judge granted temporary relief pending hearing. It freezes distributions from the trust accounts. No withdrawals over $5,000 without court approval. Also issued a cease and desist notice to the real estate broker your son contacted yesterday. They can't list or show the property until further notice." I stood by the door, arms crossed, trying to process it. Victor glanced at me briefly, then continued. "Massachusetts law on elder financial exploitation is strict," he said. Chapter 19A, Section 15. Neglect or abandonment that creates risk of serious harm can trigger immediate protective orders. We have enough from the screenshots and messages to show intent, waiting for death to access assets. But the process is slow. Full investigation by Adult Protective Services could take weeks, maybe months. Criminal charges if they come even longer. One misstep, if we push too hard without solid proof, and the court could question your fitness as potential successor trustee. You could be accused of undue influence or self-dealing. Grandpa coughed softly. Tell him about the IRS. Victor nodded. Mr. Bennett instructed me to flag certain transactions. Small transfers from trust accounts to personal ones over the last year. Under the radar but irregular. I've already submitted a tip to the IRS for review. They move fast on potential tax fraud. It won't freeze everything immediately, but it adds pressure. I felt my stomach tighten. This was real now. Lawyers, courts, federal agencies. Not some family argument that could be smoothed over with apologies. Victor pulled out a small stack of documents. New locks are being installed as we speak, he said. A locksmith is outside. We're also placing signage, property under investigation, no trespass without authorization. Standard procedure to deter unauthorized entry while the injunction holds. He turned to me directly for the first time. Miss Ellis, you're in a difficult position. If you accept successor trustee role, you'll have fiduciary duty, loyalty to the trust, not to family members. That means denying distributions if they're not in the trust's best interest. Your father, mother, sister, they'll see it as betrayal. If you refuse, the trust defaults to charity. No one gets the assets. Either way, relationships may not survive. I looked at Grandpa. He was watching me again, that same steady gaze from last night. I told you last night, he said. Stay. See it through. But this is your choice. Victor closed the folder. I need your decision on the successor designation by end of day. The injunction expires in 72 hours unless we file for extension. Until then, the freeze is partial. Enough to stop major moves, not enough to starve them out. He stood gathering his papers. I'll be back this afternoon with the locksmith's report and updated filings. In the meantime, no contact with your family unless you want to risk tipping them off. He left the room, footsteps fading down the stairs. I heard the front door open and close, then the sound of tools outside. The locksmith changing locks. I walked to the window and peeked through the curtain. A white van parked in the driveway, a man in coveralls working on the front door. A small sign was already staked in the lawn. Property under investigation, no unauthorized entry. I turned back to Grandpa. He had closed his eyes again, but I knew he wasn't sleeping. The room felt smaller now, the air heavier. I had spent years keeping this family afloat. Paying the mortgage when Dad's business dipped, covering Ashley's car payment when she lost her job, buying groceries when Mom said the pantry was empty. I had never asked for thanks. I just did it. Now everything was shifting. The trust wasn't just money, it was leverage, power. And I was being asked to wield it or walk away and let it disappear. I sat on the edge of the bed. Grandpa opened his eyes. You scared? He asked. Terrified, I admitted. Good, he said. Means you're thinking. I didn't answer. Downstairs, the new lock clicked into place. The house was sealed now. No one could come in without permission, and no one could leave without facing what they had done. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, pulling me out of the fog. Victor had left an hour earlier, the locksmith van pulling away from the curb with a low rumble. I picked it up, thumb hovering over the camera app Grandpa had shown me. The interface had a simple alert feature, two-way mic built-in designed for remote check-ins. I hesitated, then tapped to send a system notification to Dad's number, the one linked from Ashley's old device. The message popped up on my screen as it dispatched, Grandpa alert resident awake and requesting family presence immediately. Discussion on trust, matters pending. It went out clean, no trace back to me. Grandpa propped himself up on one elbow watching. Good. Let them sweat. Seconds ticked by. Then my phone lit up with replies flooding the group thread Dad had active. First from him. Keep him quiet, don't let him talk to anyone. We're booking the first flight back from Vegas. Stay silent until we get there. Mom chimed in right after. No calls, no hospital. If he starts rambling about money, shut it down. Ashley's text came last, frantic thumbs flying. If he's really awake, we're screwed. The broker deal falls apart. Hurry up and get home. We need to handle this before he calls someone. I hit screenshot on each one, the app auto-recording the audio ping from the two-way mic as it captured their voices in real time from the Vegas hotel room feed. Their panic was raw voices overlapping in the background noise of slot machines and distant cheers. Dad's tone was sharp. "This ruins everything if he talks." Every word preserved as evidence of concealment, hiding the abandonment, the waiting game for him to fade away. Under Massachusetts law, that intent could turn neglect into something prosecutable proof. They knew the risk and chose to ignore it. Grandpa let out a sad half-smile, more grimace than joy. "See that money first. Always money over me. They aren't rushing back for my health." The truth stabbed deep. Dad, Mom, Ashley. They weren't worried about a sick old man left alone on New Year's Eve. No questions about food, water, pain. Just fear of losing the payout, the house key, the easy life. I had scraped by on my salary for years, covering their shortfalls while they eyed Grandpa's assets like a prize. Now their texts stripped it bare. Pain bloomed in my chest, sharp and unrelenting. Were they ever my family or just roommates waiting for their share? I set the phone face down, screen dark. Grandpa reached for my hand, his grip frail but warm. "Hurts, doesn't it?" "Yeah," I whispered. "More than I thought." He squeezed once. "Question yourself now. Am I turning you into them? Using this to pull strings like I did with your dad?" The doubt hit hard. Was I any better sitting here collecting texts instead of dialing 911, helping seal the house, looping in lawyers? Part of me wanted to grab the landline, call emergency services, let professionals take over. But another part, the one tired of being the family ATM, wanted to see it play out, to make them face the mirror. "No," I said finally. "You're giving me facts. They're the ones hiding." He nodded, eyes distant. "Facts change people. Your dad was 35 when I cut his allowance after that bad investment. He came home raging, said I ruined his life. Mom backed him, said I was cruel. Ashley was 10, heard it all, learned to hate the control. I thought tough love built character. It built walls." I paced to the window, parting the curtain just enough to see the street. Neighbors' lights twinkled, cars heading out for late brunches. Normal life. Ours wasn't. The new lock gleamed on the door below a silent barrier. Victor's sign in the yard caught the winter sun, bold letters warning off intruders. Or family. Downstairs, my own phone rang from the kitchen counter. I ignored it. Another buzz, voicemails piling up. Dad again, voice edged with worry. "Pick up. What's going on there?" I didn't. Let them stew on a Vegas tarmac, scrambling for the next flight from McCarran Airport, some 4,000 miles west across the country. They would land at Logan in hours, traffic willing. Grandpa called softly from the bed. "Don't answer. Let the silence work." I returned, sinking into the chair. The app pinged once more, their flight confirmation shared in the group, panic typing over it. "Landing around 4. Act normal. Say he's confused." More screenshots. Each one layered the case knowledge of vulnerability, choice to delay, help, motive tied to assets. Victor would love this for the APS report. But as the messages kept coming, fragments of old memories surfaced. Ashley's high school graduation, Dad beaming while Mom fussed over photos. Holidays where we laughed over bad turkey. Were those real or just performances? The doubt gnawed deeper. By staying silent, was I betraying blood or protecting what little trust was left? Grandpa sensed it. Family isn't blood. It's who shows up when it counts. They didn't. You did. Simple words, but they anchored me. I opened the app settings, enabled full logging, timestamps, locations from their phones, pinging Vegas towers, evidence stacking like bricks. Their fear wasn't for him. It was for freedom slipping away. No more unchecked spending, no quick sale to fund dreams. The partial freeze Victor enacted meant credit cards declining, mid-swipe bills stacking at home. A final text from Ashley. Gretchen, if you're seeing this, don't do anything stupid. Irony burned. Stupid was leaving him parched, plotting behind backs. I powered off the phone, setting it aside. Grandpa relaxed back, exhaustion claiming him again. The room held its breath. They were coming. And when they arrived, the real test began. Not just for them, but for me. Could I balance justice with the ache of loss? Or would holding the line break me first? The afternoon light slanted through the front windows, casting long shadows across the living room floor. I heard the car pull into the driveway first, tires crunching on the thin layer of snow that had fallen overnight. Voices carried from outside, muffled but unmistakable. Dad complaining about the traffic from Logan, Mom saying something about needing a shower. Ashley whining that her phone had died halfway through the flight. The front door rattled as Dad pushed it open, the new lock holding firm for a second before he used his key. They stepped inside, suitcases thumping against the walls, still carrying the faint scent of casino smoke and cheap perfume. Dad laughed first, a tired bark. Finally home. That casino run was worth it. Won 300 on slots. Mom chuckled, kicking off her boots. We needed that break. Grandpa's probably still napping anyway. They moved toward the kitchen, bags dropping with careless thuds. Ashley scrolled her phone, already texting. Gretchen, you here? We brought you nothing, sorry. Before anyone could answer, the speaker on the ceiling camera crackled to life. Grandpa's voice filled the room, clear and calm. Have you sold the house yet to push Gretchen out on the street? Silence dropped like a weight. Dad froze mid-step, hand on the fridge door. Mom's smile vanished. Ashley's phone slipped from her fingers, clattering on the tile. They turned slowly, eyes darting around. The small screen on the counter, the one linked to the live feed, showed Grandpa sitting upright in the kitchen chair, dressed in a clean sweater, looking straight into the camera he had positioned there earlier. He had sent them the link through the group chat minutes before they landed. Now they saw him. Not bedridden, not dying, but alert. Dad's face drained of color. What the hell? Mom whispered. He's up. Ashley backed against the wall. This isn't real. Grandpa spoke again through the speaker tone, even. Come in, we have company. They hesitated, then shuffled into the living room. Victor Lang stood there, arms folded, briefcase at his feet. Two uniformed officers flanked him, badges glinting under the overhead light. One held a notepad. The other rested a hand near his belt. Victor stepped forward. Richard Bennett. Susan Bennett. Ashley Bennett. I represent Harold Bennett as his attorney. Pursuant to the emergency injunction granted this morning by the Massachusetts Probate and Family Court, distributions from the Bennett Family Irrevocable Trust are temporarily suspended. The court has also issued findings of probable cause for elder neglect and attempted financial exploitation under Chapter 19A, Section 15. The trust property, including this residence, is under protective order. Dad's mouth opened, closed. This is insane. He's our father. Grandfather to your daughter, Victor corrected. The evidence includes communications showing awareness of his condition and intent to delay aid pending asset transfer. The cease and desist to your real estate contact has been served. No listing, no showings, no closings. Ashley started crying loud and sudden. We didn't do anything wrong. He was fine when we left. Mom rounded on me, eyes blazing. You did this? You little traitor. I stood by the doorway to the stairs, arms crossed. I didn't call the police. Grandpa did. After you left him without water or food. Dad tried to laugh it off, voice cracking. Come on, we were just joking in those texts. He was sleeping when we left. We figured he'd be okay for a few days. One officer stepped forward. Mr. Bennett, we need to take statements, separate rooms. This is an open investigation into elder abandonment and financial abuse. You're not under arrest yet, but you're not free to leave until we finish. Dad looked at Mom, then at Ashley. No one moved. The officer gestured toward the dining room. Ma'am, you first. Ashley sobbed harder, sliding down the wall. Mom shot me a look of pure hatred. You ruined us. For him. Grandpa's voice came through the speaker one last time, softer now. I made mistakes too. Pushed you too hard, Richard. Held on too tight. But this isn't payback. It's truth. Dad stared at the camera, face crumpling. You always had to win, Dad. The officers separated them. Statements began in quiet voices. Victor handed me a folder. Preliminary findings, timelines of neglect, copies of the messages. No handcuffs yet. No dramatic takedown. Just paperwork questions and the slow grind of an investigation that could stretch for months. I stayed in the hallway listening to the fragments drift out, Dad saying it was just a vacation. Mom insisting Grandpa exaggerated, Ashley begging them to believe it was a misunderstanding. None of it sounded convincing, even to them. Grandpa's voice came through the speaker again, private this time only to me. I was wrong before. Now it's your turn to choose. I looked toward the kitchen where he still sat watching everything unfold on the small monitor he had set up. The choice wasn't about trust anymore. It was about what I could live with. The officers finished initial statements. Dad was allowed to stay in the house under supervision. At large release, they called it. But with a stern warning, no contact with Grandpa without third-party presence, no access to trust accounts. Mom and Ashley were told to find temporary lodging. The house was under protective order. As they gathered their things, Dad paused in front of me. This isn't over. I met his eyes. No. It's just starting. They left door closing behind them with a soft click. The new lock held. Inside the house felt empty in a different way. Not abandoned, but cleared. I walked back to Grandpa. He looked smaller in the chair, but his eyes were clear. You did good, he said. I didn't answer. I wasn't sure yet. 1 year had passed since that cold January morning when the officers walked out with their notebooks full of statements. The investigation stretched longer than anyone expected. Months of depositions, document reviews, and hearings in a quiet probate courtroom in Boston. The trust prevailed in the civil case. The judge ruled that Richard, Susan, and Ashley had engaged in elder neglect and attempted financial exploitation, violating Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 19A. They were ordered to pay restitution of $1.2 million, covering legal fees, investigative costs, and damages to the trust principal from delayed maintenance and unauthorized inquiries. Probation followed 3 years for each with strict conditions. No unsupervised contact with Harold or me for 5 years. No access to trust assets. No role in any beneficiary decisions. The house was placed under permanent protective order, then sold at market value through a court-appointed agent, proceeds going back into the trust corpus. Their personal accounts were drained by judgments and penalties. Dad lost his consulting gigs when clients learned of the findings. Mom's part-time office job vanished after the publicity. Ashley, at 29, now bounced between retail shifts and temp work. Her dreams of a city condo reduced to a rented room in a shared apartment on the edge of the city. They ended up in a used camper trailer parked in a cheap lot outside Worcester, about an hour west of Boston. I saw photos once, a faded white RV with peeling decals, extension cords snaking to a utility pole. They lived there together, cramped and quiet, arguing over grocery money and whose fault it all was. No more vacations. No more easy credit. Just survival. I refused every distribution the trust could have sent my way. The successor trustee role was mine, now finalized by court order, after I proved fiduciary fitness. No self-dealing, no undue influence. I redirected funds to elder care initiatives, subsidized assisted living for low-income seniors, legal aid for abuse victims programs that matched volunteers with isolated older adults. Grandpa moved into a high-quality assisted living facility in Cambridge, a place with wide windows, daily activities, and round-the-clock nursing. He had his own room, a view of the Charles River physical therapy 3 times a week. He was stable, healthier than he had been in years. I visited twice a month. We sat in the common room or walked the garden path when the weather allowed. He never asked for more. I never offered. Our conversations stayed light. Books he was reading, birds at the feeder, the Red Sox season. We never spoke of Dad, Mom, or Ashley. The no-contact order made it simple. I had chosen distance. They had chosen silence. I left my project manager job 6 months after the ruling. The salary was good, but the hours left me hollow. I took a position with a nonprofit focused on elder rights, field investigations, policy advocacy training for adult protective services workers. The pay was lower, the days longer, but every case file reminded me why I stayed that night in Grandpa's room. I helped people who had been left behind just like he had been. At night, alone in my small apartment near Porter Square, I thought about family. The word used to mean shared meals, inside jokes, holidays with too much food. Now it felt like an empty space. I had no parents I could call, no sister to text. The silence was my choice, but it still ached. I wondered if Dad ever regretted the texts, if Mom ever thought about the nights she left him alone, if Ashley ever missed the big sister who used to drive her to school. Grandpa carried his own weight. He admitted it during one visit, voice low as we sat by the window. I broke your dad a long time ago. Pushed him to prove himself, never let him breathe. Thought I was building strength. I built anger. Now I live with that. I didn't absolve him. I didn't need to. We both knew the cost. Sometimes I sat alone on my couch, lights off, staring at the wall. The city hummed outside, cars, distant sirens, laughter from neighbors. I thought about the night I came home to the dark house, the note on the table, the choice I made to stay. Justice arrived slow and steady. The court papers, the restitution checks, the probation reports. They proved what happened. But no one won. Dad, Mom, and Ashley lost their safety net. Grandpa lost his son. I lost the illusion that blood meant loyalty. Family isn't blood. It's respect. It's showing up when someone needs you. It's not waiting for death to cash in. Grandpa saved me from greed, showed me what it looks like when people value things over lives. But in doing so, he cost me the only family I had left. I don't regret the choice. I regret that it was necessary. If you're listening to this and you've ever felt invisible in your own home, ever wondered if loyalty is one-sided, remember this: you are not powerless. You can choose respect. For others, for yourself. Sometimes that choice cuts deep. Sometimes it leaves you alone. But it's yours. And that's worth more than any trust fund. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story reached you, share it. Tell me in the comments where you are right now, what time it is there, and whether you've ever had to walk away from family to find yourself. I read every word. See you next time.